When you're alone at home, the sound outside the door can arouse not only curiosity, but terror. The boy lay on the steps of the house, quietly groaning. In the distance, police sirens howled. He silently prayed that those policemen were on their way to his soul. Why had they come here? His thoughts scattered like cockroaches, and he couldn't focus and pull his body out of the house. His feet were still in the house. Suddenly, something or someone grabbed his legs and pulled him into the house. The guy didn't even have time to scream. The door slammed shut. The day before. They got dough, I'm telling you. I saw one of them withdraw a wad of cash from an ATM this morning, then she went home, didn't go anywhere, the man told his friend. They were sitting in a kitchen furnished in the spirit of the 80s. An old smoky kettle, aluminum pots and a cast iron frying pan, all cooking utensils. Punched plates labeled catering protruded from the sink. The wiped linoleum hadn't seen a floor cloth in a long time. Going to have to go for sure. How many of them are there? The other one asked. 3, 2 sisters and an old nag, their grandmother, answered his companion. We'll go at night. I don't think we'll have any trouble. These 2, quite young men plan to make a quick buck, that is to rob civilians. That's pretty much all they knew how to do. They didn't have the best lifestyles, but they both didn't drink alcohol at all. And until they crossed the line, they hadn't killed anyone. Their souls gradually became black without them noticing. They wanted to have a good life without having to work too hard. And in general, in their opinion, only suckers worked. Both of them were unmarried, and from girls they preferred unencumbered ladies with no intellect. One was called Sergei Ukrepov and the other Ilya Startsov. They were an eyesore for the local police. They had never been caught in the act, but they were suspicious. They dealt mainly in the city. After all, a bird doesn't shit in its nest. They were talking about the rich people who, in their opinion, had moved to their village not so long ago. The family consisted of an elderly grandmother and 2 sisters. The sisters were similar in appearance, about 30 years old. They bought a house in Bright Lane. The house had once been built by a rich farmer. Then he left the village, sold the business, and later the house. The house was 2 stories high and stood at the dead end of an alley. The alley was made up of similarly large houses, far enough apart. The plots were huge. Nobody knew what the sisters did. They did not go to the local stores. They did not make friends. They lived quietly. They left home early in the morning and returned in the evening. No men were seen there either. So the friends decided to rob the house. What about the bird rule? They didn't consider this family to be local. They were outsiders, so they could do it. They went out at night when the streetlights went out. We went through the neighboring vegetable gardens, as there were no fences or nets. One could go through half of the village by such vegetable gardens. The boys were sneaking through the vegetable garden, hoping for help from the darkness. They came to the house in front of them. The door to the house was unlocked, and the hallway was in semi-darkness. Before leaving, they discussed their actions, and who would look for money and valuables where. Both of them had brought edged weapons for intimidation. For a second it seemed to Sergei that this house was like a monster, waiting for its victims. Ilya walked quietly into the large living room. Suddenly he heard someone running behind him. He turned around sharply and saw no one. The house was still quiet. Ilya cautiously went up to the second floor. It was quiet. Everyone was asleep. That's when he noticed the bag tossed carelessly in the chair. Right on top of it was a tight wad of money. He quickly stuffed the wad into his backpack. There were rings and earrings on a table nearby, obviously expensive. He could see that even in the dark. A shadow flickered at the end of the hallway, and he froze. Was someone awake? That was the last thing he needed. Suddenly, something black appeared at the end of the corridor, and it was approaching fast. A cat! Ilya exhaled. Sergei noticed a wallet on the large round table. He pulled out all the cash and put it back in its place. There was a lot of money, a thick wad of $5,000 bills. Good catch. Something made him feel uneasy. He felt uncomfortable, as if he were being watched, but there was no one in the room. The man hurried to the other room. Ilya peeked through the ajar door and saw a body covered with a blanket on the bed. Someone's bedroom. They must all be sleeping here. He shut the door quietly and saw the cat again. It was sitting on the top step and was busily washing its face. The cat glanced thoughtfully at the boy, but of course he didn't notice. On the second floor, besides the bedrooms and bath, there was a living room. But there wasn't much to eat there. He was about to leave when he saw a shadow at the window. The man froze with surprise. A dark silhouette as tall as a man moved toward him. Ilya was frightened. He did not see a man, only a silhouette. It was fast approaching, and then he realized it was a clot of darkness. The darkness pounced on the guy and swallowed him up. Ilya did not even have time to scream. Sergei entered a room full of books. In the middle by the window was a table piled with papers, books. A study, he guessed. Maybe there is a safe here? He quickly searched the room and indeed found the safe behind a portrait. It was a large photograph of a beautiful girl who seemed to be looking into his soul and was watching. He felt uneasy and had the urge to get out of this house. It frightened him. Ilya floundered on the floor for several minutes, almost screaming in terror, until he realized he was tangled in some kind of blanket. What the hell? What the hell was going on here? He suddenly wanted to get away from here. He ran out of the room like he was scalded. It was as if the cat had been waiting for him. The black shadow reached out and walked straight toward the frightened man. The closer it got, the bigger it got. In a couple of seconds it was already a huge-sized cat that hissed menacingly. Ilya backed up and almost fell. The cat prepared to jump. Sergei easily opened the safe and saw the stacks of money. Quickly raking everything into a bag, he carefully closed the safe and returned the photo to its place. It seemed to him that the girl in the photo smirked maliciously. "Ugh!" the man cursed quietly. Opposite the door was a large mirror in a heavy frame. Shadows lurked in the corners. Sergei became creepy and frightened. He decided to leave this house, taking his friend. Suddenly the darkness stirred, and the mirror surface rippled as if it were water. From the mirror, the girl from the portrait looked at the man. She smiled broadly at him and stepped out of the mirror. Sergei screamed and rushed out of the study. He was almost in the hallway when suddenly she came out of there. She was coming at him with her arms outstretched. The man screamed in fright and fell to the floor. Darkness came at him from all sides. It was quite tangible and somehow slippery. It was not darkness, but something elastic and long. Snakes. They enveloped him as if in a cocoon. He screamed in a voice that was not his own. The greatest fear in Sergei's life was snakes. Ilya echoed his friend when a huge cat jumped on him and knocked him to the floor. The cat nimbly jumped to its feet and he screamed again. It was no longer a cat, but a woman with long black hair. He jumped to his feet and ran down the stairs, driven by a sinister laughter. He ran past his friend who was squirming on the floor, fighting someone off. The man tore open the front door and suddenly fell. His body now lay outside, his feet still in the house. Ilya groaned as he felt himself being dragged back into the damn house. Consciousness left him. Inga looked at the two bodies on the living room floor with a squeamish expression. Grandmother sat in an armchair, leafing through her notebook. Lara walked over to her sister. Both looked at each other as if they were exchanging thoughts. "Do you think these will work?" Inga asked. "We should try them," Lara responded. "Girls, just don't overdo it," Grandma asked. "And we need to clean this place up because they've made a mess. They broke the vase, you bastards." "Yes, Granny, we'll clean it up." "It wasn't them. I accidentally hit the vase," Inga admitted. "Still, they're weak boys," laughed the old lady. The two sisters deftly dragged the two senseless bodies down to the basement. One began to prepare the ritual, while the other undressed the boys. Suddenly one of them came to his senses. He was spinning his eyes frantically, trying to say something. His body didn't obey him. He was scared to death. "Why are you twitching?" "Calm down," whispered Inga, stroking his cheek. Mumbled the guy. "Oh, shut up, you're distracting me," Larissa replied. "You'll be grateful." The sisters leaned over a vat of boiling substance. Then one took the vat and without hesitation doused the guy from top to toe. The shriek that escaped from the man's throat was terrifying. He collapsed. Immediately before the girl's eyes, several dark clots, dark, almost black, separated from the body. Inga deftly caught them with a special trap and put them in the conspiracy jar. Holding hands, the sisters recited an ancient incantation over the boy's body. The body wriggled and convulsed for a few minutes, and then he fell silent. "One is ready," whispered Lara. With the second guy, they did the same thing. After that, they carefully washed the bodies, covered them with white sheets, and went back upstairs to their grandmother. Inga started cleaning. Larissa went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast and lunch. While she was peeling vegetables and cutting meat, Inga finished cleaning. Grandmother went to rest in her room. The sun was rising above the horizon. The day promised to be bright and sunny. Something rumbled in the basement, as if someone had fallen. Larissa put aside the knife she was using to cut vegetables for the salad. Inga put the plates on the table with a clatter. It was time. In the basement, on the iron table, sat a guy and looked around dazedly. Even his facial features seemed to have changed, becoming softer and lighter. "Good morning, Tsarevich," said Inga cheerfully. "It's time to wake up your friend." "Where am I? What's going on?" the boy asked in a huff. Some fragmentary memories were swarming in the back of his mind. "You're a guest. Get up, let's go to breakfast." Inga took the guy away and Lara stayed with the other one. With soft, almost gentle movements, she woke up the other guy. He stared at her incomprehensibly, not recognizing her at first. "Who are you?" he whispered. "A fairy, and you're a dwarf." "Wake up, Prince Charming, I can't keep you here all day," Lara shouted without anger. When they came into the kitchen, Inga was already sitting at the set table. Sergei and Ilya looked at each other in bewilderment. They obviously did not remember what had happened. "How do you feel? Where are we?" Sergei answered the question with a question. "As a guest." "Now we're guests," replied Inga. "Oh, I forgot, just a moment." Lara handed both of them a shot glass with a murky liquid. "Drink it in one gulp." The guys obediently drank, and suddenly their faces changed. They remembered. They both lowered their heads in embarrassment and couldn't understand why they weren't in the police. And anyway, what happened last night? Shall we talk? Inga suggested. Ilya nodded in agreement and Sergei remained silent. "Consider yourself given a second chance. All the darkness that was in you is gone. Of course, you are not without sin, but you are different now. You will understand what and how. If you commit evil, a grave offense against any living creature, you will be punished, you will die." "Yes, it's cruel, but I think it's fair," Lara told them. "Is it some kind of sorcery?" Ilya asked. "I remember everything, yes, ordinary magic." "That's right, you will remember so that you don't repeat old mistakes," replied Inga. "Why are you helping us?" "You could have just turned us into the police and that's it," Sergei asked cautiously, "because that wouldn't have solved the problem. On the contrary, you are both one step away from the line. Once you cross the line, taking another person's life, there's no turning back. No amount of prayer can save you. And there are enough damn people in the world, so you're witches? We're just learning." Lara winked. After breakfast, Inga and Lara accompanied the boys to the gate. When the boys were out of sight, Inga laughed. "Plus a good deed in the piggy bank. I agree. Better to clean souls than endlessly remove spoils and curses." "Yeah, right. Come on, sorceress, let's go make the potion. Soon the teacher will wake up and give us a detention." The sisters hid in the house, not forgetting to put magical protection on the house and yard. There are strange people wandering around. And what about Sergei and Ilya? This is where the story got interesting. Since returning from the sisters' house, both of them have changed dramatically. Both suddenly went to study and work at the same time, showed themselves capable students, and eventually broke into the people. Years later, Sergei will become a serious businessman, and Ilya, strangely enough, will become a lawyer. And although they did not start their path to correction when they were young, they both succeeded. One day, many years later, Sergei came to his native village just for fun. His relatives were no longer here, but he really wanted to take a walk along the familiar streets. His feet led him to Bright Lane. The house stood in the same place. Sergei thoughtfully looked at the windows of the mansion, remembering the past. Suddenly, the curtain on the second floor trembled and he saw her, Inga, and next to her stood Lara. They hadn't changed at all, hadn't aged a bit. as if frozen. He raised his hand in greeting, the sisters smiled and Inga winked. Sergei blinked and saw no one. Breathing in a full breath of air, he staggered back to the car. He would always be grateful to his sisters for their gift, the gift of real life.